this is standard form. It's the one that we've been looking at for a while. But we are talking about functions now, so we need to remember what a function is real quick. And what is a function? What is a function? So a function is just an input and an output. What do you plug in, the x or the y?
The x.
Yeah, you plug in the x and then you get the y. The inputs aren't very interesting because they're just like whatever, you just 1, 2, 3, 4. But then what the function does with the input is what's interesting. The output is what's interesting. So this is slightly different than if this was an equation. It's not really an equation anymore. It's just a statement. This function is this. That's what it says up there. Now that's standard form, right? Ax squared plus bx plus c. That doesn't really give you a whole bunch of information, and that's the stuff that we're skipping right now. So if we can manipulate this, we can actually identify what the vertex is, and we're going to do that by basically completing the square. Okay, so you got to kind of remember your steps for completing the square, and what would be the first step if this was an equation for completing the square? What would we have to do?
Find A, B, and C.
Okay, so A is 1, B is -6, and C is 2. So then if we were gonna solve this by completing the square, what would the next step be?
Find the greatest common factor, but there is none.
Well, you're factoring though. Well, let's see. Well, what were you going to say with that? It doesn't have to be. It wouldn't have to be a greatest common factor. So this works with anything at all. We had to do something with C. What was that?
A times C.
Well, but we're not factoring. Completing the square, you had to do something with C. Right, okay, so we had to move it to the other side. Now, the difference when we do this is there is no other side. Okay, this is just a statement. We're just rearranging numbers. So instead of moving it to the other side, we're going to just shove it out of the way for a second. So we're going to move it over like here. And so once we move C to the other side, what was the next step when we were completing the square?
Divide B
By...
2.
Okay, so then we're going to divide B by 2. So 6 divided by 2 is what? Then what do we do with that number? We squared it, and we get what?
9.
All right, and then what did we do with those numbers?
We put the 3 squared after -6x.
Okay, so we said plus 3 squared.
Put the 9 after 2.
Okay, so when we were solving, we added 9 to the other side, right? Okay, so, but we don't have another side right now, and we're not allowed to change the value of this function. And we got away with that when we had an equation because we just added it to both sides, so nothing really changed. So basically what we have to do is add 0 to this. And again, the whole idea is that we're just rearranging these numbers to get some information out of it. So if we want to basically add 0, and we were forced to add 3 squared, what could we do with 9 so that we aren't changing anything? Meaning we're basically adding 0. So they're both going to be on that side, but if we add 3 squared and then we add 9, then we're really adding 18. That's not good.
Wouldn't we just make 9 the negative?
So then, right, so we added 3 squared, and then if we turn around and subtract 9, then we're just adding 0, right? We're not doing anything, which is fine. So we're not changing any information. We're just kind of separating things and moving it around. Does that make sense? So yeah, okay. So again, the whole point of this is so that we can get information out of it, but we're not allowed to change the values. So we added 9 and then subtracted 9. Now we added this 3 squared because this is going to factor into what?
X plus 3 or x minus 3 squared.
Well, which one?
Minus.
Yeah, x minus 3. Why is it minus?
Because the -6x.
Because of the -6. And then what's -9 plus 2? negative 7. So now we changed it into vertex form. So we went from something that doesn't give us a whole bunch of information to something that gives us exactly where the vertex is. Okay, now do we understand what a vertex is of a parabola? So right, if this is your parabola, something, like this, then the vertex is right here. Yeah, that's where the line of symmetry, all that's coming up. Yeah, we're going to talk about all that later. So then the vertex of the one that we just found is going to be 3, negative 7. Okay, so it's going to be the opposite sign for the x value and then the same sign for the y value. Is that okay? Now the nice thing about these is that they're really super easy to check, because your next quiz is just going to be, can you change these to vertex form? But it's super, super easy to check, because if you understood what Emily was saying, how like we had to subtract 9 because we can't change anything, basically these are the same parabolas. So turn on the graphing calculator and go to y equals, and if there's anything there, erase them. And y1, put in x squared minus 6x plus 2. Just type in the original problem for y1. And then go to y2 and put what we just found as the vertex form. And then when you graph it or go to the table, it should give you the exact same information, and then you know everything's great. And so if you graphed it, what happened? We'll watch it. Right, it was blue, and then it went red over top of it. Right, because it was graphing the first one, and then it is graphing the exact same information. Okay, so if you go to the table instead, what do you see about the columns? They're exactly the same. And so now we know that we just manipulated it and we got the right stuff going on here. Is that okay? So it's super easy to check. All right, so he's trying to scare you here, but the process is exactly the same. It doesn't really matter what the numbers are. Okay? So C is in our way. So we got to shove it out of the way here a little bit. So we're just going to move it out. We're going to put it over here. So then what do we do with B? We divided by 2. So this is fairly obnoxious, but there we divided it by 2. And then what do we do with it? So we square it. Now you think that's obnoxious. What's 423 squared?
Well, 178,929.
178,000 what?
929.
929. Okay. Divided by 4, right? Because we had to square 2 also. All right. So then what do we do with those numbers?
423 squared. No, 423 over 2 squared.
So, right, so plus 423 squared minus 178,929 over 4. Oop, that's supposed to be a squared. I don't know what happened there. Okay, so then we did that so that this was easy to factor. What's that factor into?
X plus 423 over 2.
Okay, and so then, I don't know what, I'm not going to, who knows what that is. You guys got to do that on your calculator. So 178,929 over 4, bless you, negative 178,929 over 4. Minus 206 is 44,
44,938.
negative what?
44,938.25.
That seems like, did you put a negative 178,000? Okay. 44,938
Yeah.
over, is it over anything?
It's 0.25, so that'd be over.
Oh, 0.2, oh, okay. All right, let me, 0.25. So then what's the vertex then? Oops. Vertex is negative 423 over 2, comma, negative 44,938.25. What do we need to do first?
Get the 9.
All right, so we'll move it over out of the way a little bit. Now what are we going to do? All right, so I'm trying to find a good place to do this. So 5 over 2. All right, so then we got to square that. And we get what? Well, I'm going to leave it as a fraction. So 5 squared is 25, and 2 squared is 4. So what do we do with those numbers?
Put the 5 squared next to the 5 halves, and then subtract the 25 over 4.
Is that okay with everybody? Right, so it's the same every time, right? Move C out of the way, take B divided by 2 and square it, add it, and then subtract it. And so then it's, pretty straightforward. So then x plus 5 over 2 squared, and then negative 25 over 4 minus 9.
You have to get greatest common factor.
You do need a greatest common factor.
So would be negative 36 over 4.
So negative 36, yeah, okay. So then negative 25 fourths minus 36 fourths.
Negative 9. No, negative.
They're both negatives. You made me write that. Why'd you make me write that?
Oh, negative 59.
Isn't it 36?
Oh, yeah. 61.
Is that okay? Okay, so then again, the vertex is negative 5 halves, comma, negative 61 over 4.